With me now, CNBC's own Phil LeBeau. And Phil, so as I understand it, this is about these pilot jobs, about 3,000 out of it. Is it about 16,000 that United has at stake? So while it's, a good sign, this is the minority of jobs that could be affected here, right?
That's true. The deal is this in terms of the numbers. United has said, and they've said for some time, that they planned on slashing 16,000 jobs come Thursday, October 1st. 2,850 of those jobs were pilots who were scheduled to be furloughed, but the pilots union and United have just announced that they've worked out a deal. Essentially, the pilots will fly fewer hours, and this guarantees that there are no layoffs for the pilots, strictly the pilots we're talking about, through June of next year. The expectation being that there will be an increase in traffic by then and that they will not have to revisit this issue. But that's the agreement that was just announced. So United at this point, and one reason why the stock is moving higher, United will be furloughing fewer than expected employees, still furloughing about 13,000, certainly not good news for those employees. And then when you add in 19,000 at American and a number of other airlines that have not finalized how many employees may be furloughed, you're looking at somewhere between 35 and 50,000, and that's just a guesstimate at this point. We'll get a better sense by the end of the week.
And Joe Dinardi is with us as well now. He's managing director at Stifel, who covers the sector. He's on the phone. Joe, let me ask you, what are you what do you expect to happen this week or imminently, if anything, to further support the airlines here, or are we going to see this kind of job loss?
Yeah, I think the expectation at this point is that it's fairly likely that there will be an extension of payroll support, but the probability maybe is lower than it was a month ago. A month ago, I think folks viewed it as 70-30 in favor of being extended, and maybe now it's 40-60. So I think the expectation is that ultimately there will be support, but given some of the other priorities right now for Congress, that the likelihood that it gets delayed is higher than it was a few weeks ago.
United shares are up nearly 8%. They're one of the best performers in the sector, Joe. Is there ability to reach deals with their pilots, the kind of news event that could make it less likely that it's the Treasury who steps up with more aid for the sector? In other words, what happens if they have to figure it out on their own? Can they figure it out, or are the warnings a political move, or are there really this many jobs on the line? If there's no further aid, what happens, do you think?
No, I think if there isn't further aid provided, then there will need to be a right sizing of the workforce to accommodate kind of the new demand environment, or that pilots and other labor groups will have to accept inferior economics compared to their current contract. I do think that's reality, that when airlines think about what their schedule for next summer is going to look like, it's probably going to be fewer airplanes, and that's going to require fewer pilots, or pilots who are less well compensated. I think that's the expectation.
One final question to you, Joe, is who would you recommend in the sector? Who's best positioned, and what happens to a name like American that I would assume is not going to be your answer here and has among the biggest debt loads?
Yeah, we like Delta. I think they provide a good combination of quality with beta. And our thesis for the last few years has been the business that airlines have selling miles to credit card companies is an underappreciated one, and they have one of the best businesses, if not the best business, doing that. And so we think that's an asset that on the other side of this is going to be much more important to investors than it was pre-COVID. And that supports kind of a valuation argument for this group. But the question is, when does the next cycle begin? And that's obviously very, very sensitive to COVID, and when folks feel safe and are allowed to start traveling normally again. But yeah, I think Delta is our top pick.